Conclave 2024. I wasn't sure what I would make of this film going on the trailer, which I'd seen a few times, and I decided not to see the preview screening a couple of weeks ago. It just didn't interest me enough. I guess films based on religious matters. I'm not hugely interested in the Roman Catholic Church and papal stuff. The choosing of the new pope. When one pope dies, there's a conclave and all of the cardinals converge from across the world. They all travel to the Vatican and they get locked in a room, I guess for secrecy's sake. It's almost like jury service. The same sort of principle applies, that the decision takes place in complete isolation from the rest of the world. And with this example, they're taking extra security measures in the case where this particular pope has died, and the technology for recording, there's a mention at the start that pick up vibrations from the window, so they have to install blinds to prevent this. And that information is mind-boggling and interesting in a way. But the whole procedure, there's all this drama around how Thomas Lawrence, the cardinal played by Ralph Fiennes, he's been charged with managing this conclave. He is expected to make it work, and he feels a bit stressed by it, it seems. I absolutely loved his portrayal of the character. Ralph Fiennes is a really good actor, and in this film, the sense of upset and grief on his face from the moment when he's called in to witness the death of the Pope, the sense of bereavement on his face, it really struck me. I find it really fascinating seeing actors cry, tears fall out of their eyes, and I do wonder, have they just somehow used some technique, perhaps given eye drops just before the scene is shot? I guess there are techniques that could be used to give the impression of crying. However, I get the impression that lots of actors, and I think in this case it's probably true, actors actually method act. They get themselves into the state of grief where the tears will naturally flow. I find it really impressive to call forth an emotion and express it when it's not the natural emotion that might happen that day. You might be having a bad day and you're expected to show joy, or you may be having a meh day and yet you need to precipitate grief. You need to show grief to the world. I'm trying to think, if I take myself to the day that I lost my sister, and that was an awful day, and I probably could get myself thinking about that strongly enough that maybe I could cry. I don't think I'd like to. I don't want to put myself into a state of grief. I do like thinking about my sister and I do miss her, but I don't really want to take myself back to the particular day when I found out that she had died, and that was a really awful day. And so I don't think I'd be a good actor. I don't think. In some ways I'd occasionally do think, oh, well, could I try it? But to take yourself into states of immense distress, some of the most roller coaster emotions as actors often have to give. I am in awe of actors. I think that they do such an amazing job. So Ralph Fiennes, he's got a very serious role. He's in charge. They have to seal the room where all the personal effects of the Pope were, and they all stay in, it's kind of like a hotel. I guess it's within the Vatican complex, within that area of Rome, and they make their decisions, and they seem to have some elements of politics already develop at the start. It feels a bit like the US elections all over again, or many of recent world elections, in that there's a really hardline wannabe papal candidate, I guess. There's one who is more liberal, and he's played by Stanley Tucci. I love him. He's playing a character who's going to be much more tolerant and liberal and bring that side to to the Catholic world. He's more or less expressly says, I'm not going to cover matters like divorce or gay rights, or something like that. He's more or less said that everything that this other candidate is going for, he's going to be totally opposite. He's going to be against all that. So he is going to be expressly the liberal choice. Although the LGBT element is eliminated early on, I was hoping for some queer theme in this film, since I'm largely exploring queer cinema, LGBTQIA plus matters as covered by film. I was kind of losing hope when I heard Stanley Tucci's character say that, and yet there's a lot of other things at play. I'm not going to go into all of that. I don't want to go into spoiler territory, obviously. I may explore it further in a Kelly Seconds video at a later date. But for this, there's a lot of drama. There's dramatic audio effects and music all the way through this film. After the first few minutes, I started getting slightly skeptical about it, and I thought, oh gosh, this is slow moving and it's not going to be that dramatic after all. If it's just the music, it's not going to interest me. And I had a wave of tiredness, almost going to fall asleep. I think I didn't. And I talked to my friend afterwards, and she said that she was worried about getting bored fairly early on. She thought she might fall asleep as well. And I think it was probably about the same point, because we noticed day one of this conclave was over, and we were both relieved at that point that we hadn't missed anything. But it wasn't like suddenly, whoops, it's day 15 and oh, it's all over, and we just like missed something really important. However, as the film developed, it did actually become much more exciting. There are quite a few things that happen. There's unrest or bombings in Rome. You can see that in the trailer, that there's something that interferes with the vote. It happens just as they are voting. That feels shocking. You can see it happening, think, oh right, they're going to go through the votes again, and then suddenly much more cataclysmic event happens. Well, I'll skip to how I found the ending now. I had some thoughts about what might happen, and one of them was fairly close to what actually happened, and I'm not going to say what it is, but I was thinking, oh right, that's fascinating. It does make it a brilliant film to watch. I'm so glad I did see it. There's a few conflicts that arise early on, and because it seems like there's been meetings going on, they're trying to find out exactly what's happening, and of course, they can't let information leak. The only communication is going to be black smoke or white smoke, and that's that. But there's other things that happen, and there's this huge tension that comes from the divisions that are very prominent in our society at present. There's the different religions. There's the liberal side, acceptance of other religions compared to much more intolerance. So there's the diversity versus monoculture, I guess. There's the whole women's rights. There's the whole thing about the way the sisters, the nuns, are doing all the catering, and it's only men who are within this conclave. And seeing that play out, I've seen it in so many films, not just this type of scenario, obviously. That kind of thing really bothers me, this expectation that women's roles are so restricted, only men doing what is considered the important stuff. And it happens in many religions. It happens in the Church of England. Perhaps there's some more leeway. I don't really know, given that lots of modern policies in society clash against religion. And we're finding that quite a lot with how people who are strongly religious don't accept a lot of people, LGBTQIA. Many strongly, devoutly religious people aren't accepting of queer people. Some are, that's great, but many aren't. And that is a huge problem, I think, given that the church and the religious authorities have so much sway over society's mores. So whether that is explored or not in this film, I won't go into, but I did start thinking about that fairly early on because of the way the whole setup of this conclave was shown. I like a lot about this film. I like the acting. There's John Lithgow, Stanley Tucci, Isabella Rossellini, and Ray Fiennes. They're great. It's captivating the way the narrative plays out. I'm going to score this 9 out of 10. It was a better film than I was expecting from having seen the trailer a few times. I'm very glad I've seen it now in the cinema. That's my thoughts. I'd love to know what you think. Thanks for watching. Please like if you like this review. Thanks if you subscribe and ring that bell, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye for now.